everybody. I'm Jamie Ice, Fort Worth native, musician turned entrepreneur, and someone who loves diving into the stories behind great brands. In each episode, we sit down with the leaders, dreamers, and builders who are shaping our community, pulling back the curtain on their journey and the real lessons and tactics that got them to where they are today. No fluff, no highlight reels, just real conversations with remarkable people about what it takes to build something that truly matters. I'm your host, and this is Stories with Soul. All right, guys, welcome to Stories with Soul. Today, we're excited to welcome Susan Miller Gruppi and Jessica Miller Essl, the twin sisters behind M2G Ventures. Since founding the Fort Worth-based real estate investment and development firm in 2014, they've grown into a powerhouse with $1.5 billion in investments and advisory services. Is that correct?
Yes.
So crazy.
I know.
Over the past 2 years, they've transacted and redeveloped 2.63 million square feet, representing more than $226 million in capitalized value. They've acquired 4.5 million square feet since inception. Mm-hmm. Guys, that's so...
I know.
Those are like numbers my brain doesn't even understand.
Yeah, I know. Same.
Hard to wrap our head around it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty crazy. Specializing in adaptive reuse and industrial properties, Susan and Jessica have transformed spaces like Mule Alley and the Forest Stockyards, the Foundry District, into just amazing community hubs. Beyond real estate, they're passionate advocates for mental health, raising $1 million through the M2G Mental Health Initiative in partnerships with UT Southwestern Medical Center. Anyways, their work has shaped North Texas in a big way, and I am stoked y'all are here.
Thanks for having us. We're excited.
Y'all have been on my list. I want to sit down and pick your brain for a long
I love
time.
it. I love it.
Because I feel like we see each other at events and random things in very short doses.
Yeah.
But I also feel like even though we haven't spent a lot of time together, we all have the same headspace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which is, it's interesting when you come across people like that. You're like, oh, okay, we
also all started around the same time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So we're in a lot of right there circles.
Yeah, right. Yeah, for sure.
We both started in the real estate world. We're doing, I feel like kind of shaking up real estate
For
stuff a little bit. Yeah, and
For sure.
it's like when you meet meet someone who your soul just kind of resonates
Yeah,
with.
right.
Like-minded.
You're like,
their
oh, that's a
mind.
good one.
Yeah. I've felt that, the energy.
Yeah,
they think the same
for
way.
sure.
They dream the same way.
For sure.
Because sometimes I feel like I'm an alien in some.
Oh, no doubt. See, we get to
You need a
cheat.
twin.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then you don't feel like an alien.
You don't feel like
Yeah, so I'll say something weird and she's like, yeah, exactly. And everyone else is like, that was really weird. But we don't think it because we both think it.
But I will say, we started around the same, but y'all's trajectory, I feel like I'm still playing in the kiddie pool a little bit.
Oh,
Well, we
definitely
chose
not.
different paths, I think.
Yeah.
Slightly different paths.
Yes.
We're definitely in the same forest. For
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Well, so I have lots of questions I want to unpack, but I want to start at the beginning. Y'all are from Longview.
Yep.
And when I think of Longview, I don't think of big urban art, fun development
Yeah.
oriented
So true.
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah.
people.
It's not at all. So Longview, what we took away from Longview is really from our parents. Our parents, well, I guess two things. One, our dad grew up traveling a ton. He moved around a bunch. So a lot of the way we develop is informed by travel. And so my mother's family's from Longview. My dad is from a bunch of different places. He lived in Switzerland as a kid, in Africa and other places. And so we were always kind of pushed to dream really big as kids. And then
In what way? What do you mean by that?
I mean, literally, we grew up, what do you want to be? You can be anything you want to be, which
And that was a probably, maybe not daily, but for sure weekly topic in our house. And those words used,
Yeah.
What do you want?
around the dinner table, they'd be like,
Around
Oh, yeah.
the dinner table, or just picking us up from school, or
Well, they never worked for anybody else. My dad was an insurance salesman for 6 months or something and was
I
this
think it was vacuum.
blows. No, his insurance, his life insurance. He was like, this sucks. But anyways, neither of them went to, he went to college, never graduated. She never went to college. And so they were entrepreneurs their whole lives. And so they never had employees. So we were their employees basically. So we just, our love language as a family is to talk about business. Mm-hmm. That's just what we do. So anyways, so they had to find ways to make money. And so our development style is very influenced by them because my mother specifically is very much about just make things better not like start over, not
like a tweaker. She's tweaker's the wrong word, but like
exactly. I mean, she'd rearrange the furniture in the house every 3 weeks.
Yeah,
probably like that type of thing.
Yeah.
And so, anyways. That influenced how Jessica and I, we do a lot of adaptive reuse for sure. And then, and we've always been more artistic. So art's been a big part of our lives. And then Katie Murray, who I think who Jessica and I went to college with her, and she's one of our very best friends. And so when we started, we did a lot of travel, and then when
y'all traveled a lot as a family.
We didn't start. There was 5 children, so my parents were like, "Please, just
Wait, and where
survive."
Are you in that?
We're the youngest.
We're the youngest.
Oh, the baby.
Yes, yeah.
Okay. Which I guess if you have 5, at y'all's point, they're like y'all just doing your own thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're like, just live.
Which is probably some of your independence.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
For sure.
But we have 3 older brothers, and then there's me and Susan.
Yeah. Okay. But so anyway, so we had traveled a ton and seen a lot of really cool places, and a lot of it had urban art. And then we got to Fort Worth, and we're like, well, where is it? So it didn't come from Longview. And Katie's so talented. One day we're like, hey, we want to start doing like large scale murals. Do you want to try? And she's like, sure, I'll try. And then she did the first one. We're like, whoa, you're really good at this. So art influenced our development style. And then the last one is we both worked for Terry Montesi. I worked there for 8 years. Jessica worked there for 4. He owns Trademark Property Company.
He does such cool stuff.
And he's, especially, in the 2000s, like he was and still is, but very cutting edge in rating, in making really creative places. And he also believes in public art and all that. And so that informed more of our institutional
how to
mixed
apply
use
it to the commercial real estate space.
Yeah. So it's kind of an amalgamation of how we were raised, being influenced by travel, having a love for art, and then Terry. It's kind of a mixture.
So young, your parents are encouraging you to dream and think.
Yeah.
And kind of giving you a blank canvas versus like ushering you into do you have those like rhythms or things with your kids? Like, is that how do you like?
So Vivian the other day, so Jessica has Vivian, I have Elliot, 2 girls. She has another little girl named Gigi, and I have a little boy named Ben. But Vivian is the oldest. Vivian is 9 and Elliot is 7. And Vivian the other day said, Aunt Susan, can Elliot learn what you do and I learn what mommy does so we can have your company? So they're already thinking about it for sure, which Jessica and I had. We played business. That's what we did. We had business. Like that's what we would have. Whatever. We'd have a restaurant today, or the next day we'd have.
We made so many different
businesses. Yeah. We tried to go on Shark Tank once. Yeah. We didn't make it. Yeah.
Oh, like
yeah, legit.
Literally.
We have a patent for an unbeknownst object.
Yeah.
You had like a product.
Yeah.
Really?
So
this is pre M2G.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. This was like when we were in college, I think.
What was your product?
It's hilarious, and I found it the other day. I found all the prototypes.
Yeah,
but
so it was a clip that had so it looked like a pin clip, the back of a pin on one side, and it went like this, and the other side had basically a grip on it, so you could put your sunglasses in it, so they wouldn't fall out. So we always carried our sunglasses like this.
Yeah.
And so that's what we invented. So we would.
It's called glasses
Did you ever sell it?
No, we talked to Luxottica. We had some pretty interesting conversations with Luxottica, which is like lens crafters, all that.
I think the IP still sits on my balance sheet at like $6,000 or whatever. I'm like, I spent that money. It's going on my balance sheet. I'm getting credit for it.
Also, real quick, that shows so much about like you.
Yeah, I know.
That you have a balance sheet from how long ago was that?
We had
25 years.
We had balance sheets when we were like 20 years old.
Yeah.
There's nothing.
Serious?
Yeah, there's like nothing on them, but we had them.
Yeah. Because did your parents teach you that?
Yes,
Yeah.
because my dad was an entrepreneur. So again, as we know as entrepreneurs, you've got to have a balance sheet.
Yeah, like our friends are always like anyone in our life, they're always shocked by like just how openly our family talks about business and money. Like it's like talking about what you're going to have for lunch.
Yeah.
And that's been since we were 2 or 3 years old. So that's just our family talk.
Well, and a whole nother topic, but our parents went bankrupt when Jessica and I were 4.
No, you remember that?
So, no.
Stories with Soul is brought to you by my company, 6F Storytelling, where we help entrepreneurs and small businesses grow through the power of storytelling. If you're stuck watching competitors get all the attention, or you're tired of wasting money on random marketing tactics that don't work, you're not alone. As an entrepreneur who's built multiple businesses, I know firsthand how frustrating it can be to have a great product or have a great service, but struggle to get the attention you deserve. Because here's the truth. Being good at what you do isn't enough anymore. You need a way to stand out and connect with your ideal customers. That's why we created the Storytelling Pathway, a proven framework for story-driven marketing that turns solid businesses into brands people can't stop talking about. So whether you're just starting out or if you're ready to scale, we can help you craft and share your unique story in a way that attracts the right customers and drives real growth. So if you're ready to stand out, visit 6avstorytelling.com today. I would love to chat with you.
One thing we do remember,
I mean, it's burned in our brain for sure because it's very formidable as a family.
But this is how good they were as parents. So they had built this beautiful house. They went bankrupt because they invested into a luxury subdivision. They built
SNL
a
crisis.
luxury subdivision in Longview in the SNL crisis when everyone lost their ass.
Okay, yeah.
So anyway, but you can't take someone's home. So our parents had built this beautiful home. And then had like a tiny guest house next to it. And so they moved us all into the tiny guest house because you can't sell a mansion with 7 people in it, especially 5 children. Mm-hmm. So they moved us all into the guest house, and my mom made little cubbies out of our furniture.
So we had like
bookcases.
The living room had 5 rooms in it.
And we thought it was the coolest thing
I'm
ever.
sure.
Yeah.
We were like, man, we're like living in a giant fort now.
Right, exactly.
And it was like that for like maybe 6 months.
As kids, that's all you...
Yeah, you just want fun, and your parents make you feel safe and be together and whatever. And then that's how then they rebuilt their life and company from there, and then turned into major success.
I imagine the stress though. Like I think about the stress of my mom, of course, but my dad. I had 5 kids. So our oldest brother is special needs, and then there was 4 in diapers, and you have $0. I mean,
so stressful.
Oh my God!
And especially like your job. Did he do real estate development stuff?
Yeah, yeah.
And if it's not like you can go get a paycheck.
Exactly.
It's not like it's not like there's a salary coming in or something.
Right.
It's like.
And he didn't graduate from college, so like it's not like he could be like, oh well, I could go back to being a doctor
and he was
or
like
whatever.
45 years old.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he wasn't like super young, and he wasn't super old. So it's like your only choice is to rebuild really.
Figure it out.
Yeah,
oh
figure it
God,
out.
so stressful.
That's
But he did.
wild.
Yeah, he did.
Amazing. So, did y'all go to public school?
We did both. We did public until 3rd grade, then private till 8th, then public for 2 years, then private again. Longview is kind of interesting. There's really no difference other than the environment. I mean, because even the private schools are not necessarily like Fort Worth.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
They're not fancy.
They're not fancy at all. It's just a different environment, smaller class size, that type of stuff. So our parents let us kind of pick, because Susan and I were always, even though I wouldn't say we were as dedicated as we are now to putting in the work, we were always pretty good students.
Yeah.
So.
And y'all both went to TCU. And going into college, had you already decided you want to do real estate? I'm assuming you're like, we're gonna run our own businesses. Or was that the mindset?
Going into college, I would say Susan and I always said we were going to be entrepreneurs. That's how we described ourselves.
So you knew that concept pre-college.
When people would ask what our parents, because your dad's a doctor, my dad's a lawyer, whatever. They're like, "What's your dad do?" And I'm like, "He's an entrepreneur." And they're like, "What's that?" And I'm like, "I have no clue." And then no clue what that word means, but I know it's a word.
He works for himself.
That's a job.
Yeah. So we knew going in that we wanted to be entrepreneurs. Did we understand exactly what that word meant? And down to the you're basically on your own. I don't know if we had that much self-awareness around it, but we knew we wanted to be entrepreneurs, and we knew we wanted to do real estate in some capacity. I think our parents thought maybe real estate would wane over the time we were at TCU, and then we'd end up doing going to want to be, an executive for somebody else or whatever.
Looked at ad PR once.
We looked at PR, advertising.
I was going to be a fashion designer was what I was originally going to
Really?
be.
We looked at architecture.
Yeah. Architecture, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, and then long story short, we
what'd
picked real estate.
you both study?
Finance and real estate.
You both did finance and real estate.
Yeah. And she had a concentration in Spanish,
Spanish.
and I had one in leadership.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
Which I can't speak any Spanish for the record.
Yeah. I mean, I'm surviving as a leader.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Man, I know.
Yeah. I wish if I could go back again, I would love to have done finance.
It's
Yeah.
just a good base. I can't say I use any of it these days, but it's a good base. And I would say the TCU's business school, not to plug them, but it's really good.
Yeah.
I'd say it's slightly different. I don't know that I learned a bunch in college finance wise that I'm like, oh, it's amazing. But out of the two of us, because we knew we were going to have our own business one day, we said one of us has to specialize in finance. And I am so glad that I did because it's
integral.
It's very foundational, and it allows me to, especially in a new business setting, I can, because we invest our own capital, but a lot of times we're investing other people's capital.
Yeah.
And it's very critical that you can communicate in a way that they understand, which they understand finance. That's what they understand. They don't understand what we're talking about with sold and stuff like that. Yeah. And so it has, they're like, what? So it does help translate a little bit.
For sure.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Because I studied philosophy, which I love. I learned how to think.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I feel like business, and I never graduated. I was 18 hours short, college dropout.
That's exactly what Dad was. Yeah.
But I feel like business wise, I've learned everything. I have no need to go.
Yeah.
But I'm I would kind of love to go back and take some
fun.
finance.
Yeah.
Or accounting classes. I wish I had done that.
Yeah.
So y'all are going, study finance, study real estate, with the intention of
having our own business someday.
in real estate.
In real estate, yeah.
Yeah.
So when we graduated, we knew we were going to have our own business. We were very clear on our goals then, and we started working for Terry. We started interning when we were juniors.
Oh, so you started working with him immediately.
We started meeting with him as our mentor in our junior year, and then we interned for a year, and then we started working there. And we told him from the day he hired us, we're going to have our own company. And so it was.
And he was mentoring you in college. How did that work?
It was interesting. So
how does he have time to let me?
We didn't really give him time. We just said,
you're going to mentor us. Yeah. Yes.
That shows so much about y'all's personality.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and we're like two twin freaks. We're like, you were going to mentor us. And
he was like, okay.
Yeah, his dad was an identical twin. So he was very used to the twin dynamic. And again, Jessica and I by the time we graduated from college, we were pretty much the type of people we are now, which is very hard charging, very intense, goal oriented, look you in the eye, this is what I want to do type thing. So it's kind of hard. He couldn't hide from us. We wouldn't let him. What was I going to say? But we told him that we were going to work for ourselves soon. And so we made a goal that in 2 years, we'd work for somebody for 2 years, and then we started our own business.
Hey, I'm interrupting this episode because I want to share something with you that I'm really excited about. One of my biggest missions in life is to make entrepreneurship easier than it was for me. After spending over a decade building multiple businesses, I've learned some hard lessons, often the expensive way. And here's the thing, I see so many talented entrepreneurs struggling with the exact same challenges that I faced. They've got great products, they've got great services, but they're stuck trying to figure out how to stand out and how to grow. They're wasting time and money on random marketing tactics, they're watching competitors get all the attention, and they're feeling overwhelmed about what to focus on next. That's exactly why my team and I just created 2 incredible free resources that I genuinely wish I had when I was starting out. The first is our storytelling marketing assessment. In just 5 minutes, it'll show you exactly where your marketing stands today and give you a clear roadmap of what to work on next. No more guessing, no more wasting time on strategies that don't work. And the second is our complete storytelling pathway framework. This is the exact system that we've used to help hundreds of businesses grow through the power of story. This isn't just a theory, it's a practical, proven framework that shows you step by step how to turn your business into a brand people can't stop talking about. I'm giving both of these away completely for free because I truly believe that when local businesses thrive, our whole community thrives. This isn't about making a quick buck. It's about sharing what works and helping other entrepreneurs succeed. You can get both resources right now at 6thAvestorytelling.com/free. I promise you these are absolute game changers. They're going to help you get clear on exactly what you need to do to grow your business and give you the roadmap to make it happen. Don't miss out on these. Head over to 6thAvestorytelling.com/free and grab them now. All right, back to our conversation.
And you know how short 2 years is. You're like, Jesus, I don't know anything yet.
Yeah.
So it went. We worked a lot longer, obviously for him. And then started our own gig 8 years later.
You wound up as like head of finance.
I was when I ended. I was a VP of finance, and then I switched over to I wanted to be a developer, obvioused. So then I switched over to development. I had that. If I was going to work anywhere, that would have been the company that I would have worked at for forever. But towards the end, my good days weren't as good and my bad days are worse because I was obsessed with having my own business. Mm-hmm. And I just, one day I called Jessica and said, I've got to do it. I've got to try. Even if I fail, I don't really care. I've got to at least do it. And I was 28 and I had like $250,000 saved and we had no children. And so I just
time to do it.
Time to do it.
You had stacked years at this point of like dipping your toes in all the waters.
Oh yeah, and I told everybody we're having our own business. So when we found our first deal, I mean the way we raised capital from 19 investors, and it basically was people that I worked with throughout the years.
19 investors.
Yes. And none of them invested because of the deal. They said, we're investing in the jockey, not the horse.
What was y'all's first deal? Was it the Magnolia property?
No, that was one of the first ones. Our very first one was on Vassick Street.
Where's that?
And it was over by White Settlement. It's like that industrial area.
Kind of where Fort Brewing was.
Yeah. Okay. Our first deal is a crazy story. You'll love this story.
Give it to me.
Okay, so, and it was our first deal, so think about that.
So we're like in a tiny co-working space, like no bigger than this, actually smaller than this room, with like computers, and we had like a social media intern.
There's so much I'm about to tell you that's going to blow your mind, because I'm also going to go into the dad thing about, him taking our money. But no, it's good. It's a positive thing. It shows, again, how we were raised in business.
Yeah.
So just set the stage. I leave and start M2G. Jessica comes.
No, let's back up. Susan leaves and starts Miller Commercial and looks at LoopNet.
I had no business plan. I just rented a little. It was
you have some savings, so you're living off of savings.
Savings.
You don't have any deals. You're not like
no deals. I was like, no. I looked at LoopNet and I literally was looking at Zillow. I was like, am I going to buy houses? What am I going to do?
I'm going to buy something, make it better, and then sell it.
Literally. So I bought a printer and like a computer. Yeah. Get on GoDaddy, and I'm like, I need an email. Whatever. So we do that. So for 5 months, I'm looking for deals.
Well, you're missing critical parts of the story.
Please.
I'm just saying. So this was for 2 months, and then I quit my job and then came over, and that's when we started M2G.
So you quit. Y'all both kind of burned the ships.
Yeah. Around the same time. It was about 2 months apart. Yeah.
And even though she was working I was giving her like hourly updates, texting her like, here's what I did today. Like
this deal.
But was the plan you're always going to work together?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. We wouldn't. I think we could do it. Like each of us individually could do it. We just would not be near as good.
Mm-hmm.
And it'd be way less fun.
And it'd suck. Yeah. It just would be, you have a partner, obviously.
It's really hard.
Very lonely without a partner.
Yourself.
Yeah. Like Jesus. But anyways, so we come across this deal. It's an off-market deal. And it's an 80,000 square foot shitty industrial deal. And we go and raise capital for it. And from 19 people, include one of them was our dad. And we have no balance sheet, as you know. And so it comes time.
We did have a balance sheet. There was nothing on it.
Yeah. So it comes time to guaranteeing the debt. And so I'm like, shit, we need to guarantee the debt. So I'm like, Dad, I'll pay you 50% of the promote, which I'll explain what promote for everybody else. What promote is in a second. If you will guarantee this debt. Mm-hmm. And because the promote, we were underwriting like 300 grand. So I was like, okay, 150 grand for, it's our first deal, like whatever. So he says, okay. And so then we start our business plan. We own it for 2 months. And, long story short, we were leasing it, and then somebody came in and said, I don't want to lease it, I want to buy it. And we said, it's not for sale. And they said, how much would it be? So we looked at the underwriting of what we would sell it for in 5 years after we redid it all and gave him that number. He said like $1 million less. We said no. And then that afternoon, he wired $1 million into the title company without a signed contract.
For the 5-year number.
So we bought it for.
You hadn't fixed it up.
We bought it for 3.7 and sold it for 5.9.
There are marketing
60 days later.
Yeah.
No way.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's first deal, so we're like,
we're geniuses.
oh my god, yeah, exactly. Which of course we found out later. God was like, I'm gonna give you this one because you're gonna have some hard ones later.
The funny part about that too, during that time period. So
What year was that?
2014.
Okay.
So
I feel like that was there was like deals to be
Yeah,
had.
right.
yeah,
Yes.
you could buy stuff that was actually good basis. But
Yeah.
anyway, so we received this offer and we call our dad. We're like, Dad, we just received this offer for like $5 million. We told him it would take 6.
Because our dad's been our advisor, like our mentor,
our
our
whole
whole
time.
life.
He's like, you should take that immediately. We're like, we don't think we should do it. He's like, I really think you should take that. And we're like, we're going to turn it down. He's like, okay. We hang up the phone and then we tell our broker, and she goes back and delivers the news, and that's when he said it. But it was like nail biting for about 2 hours. We're like, are we idiots? Or
So then everybody thought we were smart, which we were lucky.
we were in
and,
the right place at the right time. We did have
good
a
luck follows
business
hard
plan.
work.
Yeah.
But so then the even more funny story, I think, even though it's obviously like way open kimono. So the promote on the deal was $1 million. It was not 300 grand because we sold it so quickly. And so we have to write Dad a check for $500,000. And so I go to Dad and I'm like, hey Dad, like this is you only did it for 2 months and we're starting our business. Like maybe we like modify the deal or something. He's like, nope.
Yeah.
You write me that check.
Good for him.
Yeah, I know.
Well, he has always wanted us to make it on our own.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we've been blessed that we have a family that if something really terrible happened, we would have people to call.
Safety net.
Yeah.
But they've never wanted to never wanted us to have any doubt in our mind who did the work to get here. Mm-hmm. And so that's how we were raised.
Yeah.
So.
I still would have liked that.
Yeah, it would have been nice.
Though.
Yeah, it would have been nice.
I always say like one of the best things that ever happened to me was when my parents cut me off.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
When I dropped out of college, they were like,
Nope.
you're done.
Yeah.
Every
Yeah.
phone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it forces you to go,
I agree.
okay, I have to take
And it was
care
like
of myself.
the best thing that ever happened
Yeah,
to me. Like,
yeah.
I was so poor. Like
Yeah.
I loved it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. I didn't love it at the time, but in hindsight,
Hindsight, yeah.
such a good move.
Well, and you have to answer the question yourself, what am I going to do? No one's going to tell me what to do and no one's going to put me there anymore.
Yeah,
I've got to figure it
I
out.
got to figure it out.
Yeah.
Sink or swim.
Yeah.
So you now have cash. You now have like
Yeah.
made some cash, and you can go.
So then because we were worried about taxes.
Yeah, do you 1031 that?
We
when you have that
1031'd
many
it.
people,
We had to get all of them.
Yes,
to
I did
agree.
all of them to agree.
all 19 people to
Yes.
agree.
But
To roll the
everybody
money.
was like, we made so much money. Oh my God.
Well,
So-
and they had given us their money, assuming it was going to be locked up for at least 3 years. So getting them to agree wasn't that big of a.
it was administratively a pain in the ass.
but they were all
yeah.
like, we didn't assume we would get this back anyway, so let's keep rolling it.
Yeah, nobody wanted to pay short-term gains.
Yeah.
So then we 1031'd it, and the 1031 max rules are you can do up to 200% of the sale price. So then all of a sudden we had $12 million of buying power. So we went from having, I'm looking at Zillow, and this is again, Fort Worth was not. You remember Fort Worth 10 years ago, there was a big difference in the investment.
It was pretty sleepy.
Interest. Like there wasn't a lot of people trying to buy a bunch of urban stuff and whatever.
Yeah, like all of a sudden, 2017, 2018, it got way
Overdone.
harder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so we were trying to spend $12 million in 60 days or whatever. So all of a sudden, brokers in Fort Worth market are like, where did these people come from? And so then that kind of established, we bought 3 assets. One was Magnolia. One was
200 Carroll, that was the first asset in the
Foundry.
like where M&O was.
Yeah.
and then one was Best Buy. We bought the Best Buy at the intersection of 820 You know what I'm talking about?
Bought that Best Buy?
Oh yeah, man.
Great deal.
And it was a great deal.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Screamer. This is before Best Buy had its demise.
Yeah.
We got in and
And
out.
were you
basically.
leasing it back to Best Buy?
Yeah, so
was-
Best Buy,
it was a
it was a
triple
cash
net
flow
lease.
play.
Yeah.
So we it was like an 8 cap or something. So we took, again, people thought we were super smart. We took like the profits that we made and invested them in portion in like Magnolia and
Value add.
Carol, value add stuff, and a portion in a cash flowing deal. So then people started getting distributions like immediately. And they're like, what's happening? And then we ultimately sold Best Buy because we knew where that was going. But yeah, that's what
It was
we
a
bought.
good deal though.
I didn't know you did the Best Buy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was a random one. That was the only. Oh, there's probably some other randoms in there, but
Yeah, yeah.
every now and then we end up with something that doesn't fit.
Our entrepreneurship shows
Yeah.
a little too much. You're like, oh man, they're entrepreneurs.
Doesn't have the soul.
Yeah,
Like-
exactly.
Yeah.
But I remember when y'all bought. So Tim Harvard was a friend of mine. And I remember him saying like, yeah, these two sisters are buying the building. And
This is the Magnolia guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Magnolia guy. Anyways, I remember that was the first time I heard about y'all. He was like, they're buying the building,
That
Yeah.
was a really cool building.
and then y'all put a
Yeah.
big old art on it.
Yes.
Mural on it. That was part of our Dreamer series. That was Follow Your Dreams. And that we had Katie come do a community mural, and we opened it up on Martin Luther King
Day.
and everyone submitted community, what they wanted the mural.
That's when we had the peace machine.
Yeah, we had the peace machine. We had a piano come. We had this lady come, like jam out while Katie painted. It was super cool.
Again, because we love to travel, we would see like you go to Amsterdam and you see like a community piano, stuff like that. And we're like, man, we want one of those. So of course we got one, and then we painted it, and then we just move it around to our properties and sit it outside so people could play it randomly.
Well, in my
cool.
previous life, so after I left Trademark,
Then it got
I
rained
didn't
on.
stay as much as Susan. I was there for 4 years, and then I went to Open Realty Advisors in Dallas, and I traveled a whole bunch, like around the United States, seeing all the best real estate from a retail perspective, primarily all the best neighborhoods, all the gritty neighborhoods, and that's any other urban market you go to, that's everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like we just had none of it here. We just had a huge dearth of it. So it was when we started getting engaged into doing a lot of adaptive reuse, there were so many examples to pull on from other cities in the United States to go like, this is not this far-fetched, and everybody can get behind art.
But here that was a new.
It was,
was
new,
very new.
very
Yeah.
It was very like
Yeah.
making these like fun spaces and
Yeah.
putting in retail and putting in restaurant and
Yeah.
like colors.
It like didn't exist. It was weird.
It totally did not
Yeah,
exist.
yeah.
And y'all were kind of pioneers
Yeah.
in that in a big way.
Well, it made things better, so much better than they were. I mean, if you remember, so we bought the foundry, and that was over 13 different assemblages, but the buildings in the middle where Inspiration Alley is, those were just the backs of like piece of shit buildings in an alleyway. And so we decided to do Inspiration Alley, and I think we spent $30,000 on Inspiration Alley with all the artists. Thank you, artists, because y'all are amazing. And transformed it into
This fun,
Yeah.
vibrant.
But even before that, when we purchased, so we had bought 200 Carroll M&O and all that was, and the stuff across the street where Doc's Records and Blackland and all that was coming up, but it was an old family storage.
literally.
Warehouse. That's basically what it was. So as soon as we bought it, we decided to paint it multicolored. And people were like, why are you doing that? We're like, because that's the only way people are going to stop looking at this like an old dirty warehouse.
And
that's what we did. Like we spent,
and we didn't have a lot of money.
yeah, we
so
spent
we're
like 10 grand to like immediately change perception.
yeah.
So that project, we're jumping around a little bit, but that project in particular there's so many case studies on that project we've used at so many other projects, because it's like, especially with our team, is a lot of our team comes from an institutional background. Entrepreneurial bent, because to work at M2G and be successful, you kind of have to have that builder's mindset.
Yeah.
But we use that project as so many examples about like, it's not about how much money you have to throw at something. It's about the intent and your thoughts around it and doing something different and thought provoking, and then stretching that dollar. So that same dollar you were going to spend anyway on white paint now actually made somebody go,
Yeah, make it interesting.
interesting. There's a ton of examples on that project, but
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I just think in general, like when we did Brood, the
Yeah.
first
Yes.
time, one of the biggest lessons in real estate I ever learned, because I could have bought that building at the time. It was this ugly building, and we didn't buy it. I was like, that's too much money. It's too risky.
Yeah.
But we made this beautiful, compelling space.
Yeah.
And we increased the value of that building.
So much.
Oh my gosh.
exponentially.
Yeah.
And so I was like, you can create your own value. And then we were doing houses and stuff. I was like,
Yeah.
if you make them fun
Yeah.
and vibrant, like they're worth way more.
Yes.
Like you can create, but I feel like y'all were coming in where everyone else was doing white and
Yeah.
beige. Like y'all were doing these fun things where people wanted to gather. So the Foundry, I'm assuming like, so you're like 7th Street's going in over here. This is happening.
Mm-hmm.
This is this kind of ugly industrial land hidden behind Target.
Yeah.
But walk me through sort of like
The strategy behind it.
yeah, because that y'all got, you said 13 different.
Yeah.
So we knew, one, I would just say from our backgrounds, as Susan was describing, we knew that Fort Worth was ready for a larger neighborhood play that included a lot of adaptive reuse. And the near South Side had started doing that with Magnolia, but it was different. It was more quaint and historic. So we had seen a lot of different warehouse conversions in different places. So we were looking in general, not necessarily on this area, for an area in Fort Worth that had a bunch of old warehouses that we can convert. At the same time, we started looking at this area going, okay, there's 3 streets that go through there's 3 major east-west streets that go through where everybody has to go, which is where everyone lives,
In downtown.
Camp Bowie, Arlington Heights, Rivercrest, Crestwood, et cetera, to downtown where they're working. And so that was White Settlement, 7th Street, and Lancaster. Lancaster's landlocked on the majority of the sides. 7th Street is what it is. And, some people were taking it or leaving it. It was becoming very commercial. And then you saw White Settlement, which was, this seems kind of like it could be interesting and thought-provoking, and it's close enough to the major incomes and all those type of things. So that's how we started buying over there, trying to think of a neighborhood
Did you
play.
put together like a master plan for that? Or a master,
I would love to say we did.
budget for that? Or you just started kind of buying little
In the
things here and there?
beginning, the first probably, so 200 Carroll it's 1031. Yes, we went ahead and branded it as the Foundry. We started,
So you had that concept for the name and all that?
Oh, yeah.
we cast the net
Okay.
from the very
We
beginning.
bought one
owned-
building and called it the Foundry.
and called it the Foundry.
Okay.
But then the large block across the street came up. And after that came up and we purchased that, then it was time to go, okay, this is a district we're going to build. And then we went with, what's the master plan? What's the acquisition strategy? What's the capital plan? How do we exit this thing at some point? And that's when that started
But honestly,
happening.
the success of that project,
Project meaning the first.
the Foundry overall,
Okay.
because the returns when we exited were fine, but they weren't like, oh my God. But the reason it was successful was because we loved it.
Yeah.
So we
Yeah,
officed.
you put a lot of thought and heart.
We officed there for 6 or 7 years in different buildings. And so if we didn't office there and weren't there every day, I don't think it would have been near as successful. That entire project is exactly an example of what, just take humans, take pets, take plants, whatever. If something's loved, how much more it can.
And we could have done
grow.
a lot more than that, but
Yeah.
we're budget constrained.
Yeah.
But which is fine. That boosts creativity.
Yeah.
But I'm assuming as you're buying the first couple pieces, and now people know they're buying up everything,
Yeah.
the price starts going up on
Oh
stuff.
yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
But you've already doubled down on it.
Yeah,
Like, we
right.
gotta,
Yeah, and that's ultimately one of the reasons that we ended up not continuing with it and selling it, because pricing had gotten so crazy. To add on any other acquisitions, you were going to have to densify and go vertical on a bunch of stuff, which is a whole other financial exercise than a horizontal warehouse district. Not that we couldn't do it, but it would have been different capital partners, all the things
Yeah.
that go into that, and so we ended up
Longer.
selling it. Yeah, much longer. So we sold it in 2023, beginning of 2023.
2022.
Oh, so not too long ago.
2022.
Yeah, we sold it to Asana, who does a bunch of adaptive reuse stuff.
Okay.
So they've been a great steward for the project.
Okay, we haven't talked about the twin dynamic and,
Okay,
and the
fine.
relationship.
Yeah.
So you're obviously very similar. Because I was asking about, like, I talk about this on the podcast a lot, culture index.
Yeah.
I had
Yeah.
you both take this profile assessment thing, and both of you, your profiles are almost the exact same. So, which is wild, because I feel like maybe
Yeah.
it's not wild, but the way you operate, both of you, is almost exactly the same. And what's interesting is the first sort of attribute, and the neat thing about culture index is it shows you how intense or rare or
Yeah.
apparent an attribute is, versus like Myers-Briggs sort of tells you you're an INJP.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
Right.
tells you how intense it is.
Yeah.
And so your first attribute is autonomy, how self-motivated, self-starting. And y'all are like, less than 2% of the population is as extreme and as intense as y'all are.
We're very intense. Which is why we do a lot of like self-care and like meditation and stuff to like just
balance it.
Live.
Because both of you are like in the future, you hit an obstacle and you're just going to bulldoze through it.
Yeah.
Both of you are like slightly introverts a little bit.
Exactly.
Susan, you're a little more social. And then
true,
both of you
actually.
both of you are like not patient. You move really, really fast.
Yeah.
You juggle a lot of things. You're go. You're intense. And then both of you like don't care about rules. You buck.
Particularly me.
Jessica is even more so than me. Jessica hates to be told what to do. I can do it. I guess it's the finance in me. Jessica.
I don't hate it.
She hates it.
I usually have put a lot of thought into the decisions that I want to pursue. And so
she's more thoughtful than I am. I'm
so Susan will fold easier and I'm more like, I've thought about this for about 15 hours.
Yeah.
So,
I'm pretty brash.
I'm happy to tango here with you, but like we're not just gonna like just go the other way.
But it's wild that both of y'all are super driven. And so, the only difference in it is this logic one, which is logic is how you perceive information. And so, Susan, yours is very personal.
I'm very emotional.
Very emotional.
Yeah.
You're very sensitive, I would assume. You wear your heart on your sleeve. Your feelings kind of gut oriented.
Yeah.
And you're the opposite. You're like black and white. You're like Spock.
Yeah.
It's not emotional.
Yeah.
Susan, I would say one difference between us is,
Which
and
is
it's
so
been
interesting.
our entire life, Susan has always cared more about what other people think.
Yeah.
And I've kind of been like, meh.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And not that I don't care what other people think. I just, if they don't agree, it doesn't have an effect on me.
Well, another way to say it is I'm motivated by fear. Jessica is motivated by more success.
Yeah. So it's just,
I don't want to fail. She doesn't even, failing
I'm
is
like,
not even in
failure's
her.
not even in
Yeah,
there.
Yeah.
It's not even an option.
Yeah.
So what I think is interesting is you both have very intense, extreme personalities.
Yeah.
You probably y'all are a lot alike. Y'all are like probably y'all are best friends
Yeah.
in school and stuff. But at any given point, both of you have opinions.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious how you have managed to stay friends, to stay business partners, to like stay as close as you are when you both have such intense and strong opinions and drives, like the ability to clash, because I'm assuming you clash.
Yeah.
Or you just like, we always agree.
No. I would say that we're 38 now, and that is for sure a learned process into getting to where, being so opinionated separately can be a superpower as one voice.
Yeah.
It can also be, if you're not 100% aligned, we can scare the shit out of people.
Yeah.
Like, we're in a meeting with the team.
And y'all start going at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
we try not to anymore. I mean, like
but-
we're too old for that, but sometimes that
You just can't help it.
yeah, just
Because you care so much.
Right.
you
Yeah.
care so much.
Yeah.
But
And both of you you're not deferential.
Yeah. Right.
no. Usually when we say something, it's because we really mean it. And then so if someone tries to pull you off, you're like, I'm going to stick here for a second.
Yeah.
But I would say, that's been a learned thing for us. And we've gotten where we are today because of really good counsel by mentors, not necessarily somebody who has another identical twin, but someone with a business partner. We've, really had to try and, even though it's really hard for us because business is personal. I mean, that's Susan and I's life is M2G. But we have to be intentional about what we talk about personally, because we can get heated on something like on a Saturday night and it's like everyone's just wanting to have a cocktail and hang out.
Yeah.
So we have to like intentionally not talk about stuff.
I'll say like, I don't want to talk about business.
Yeah.
And she'll be like, just one more thing. Let me just get it out. And I'm like, no.
I would also say we've gotten a lot better about realizing who is more passionate and opinionated about the topic and just letting that person win.
Yeah, you care way more.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
I care less.
We both are going to the same. I would say I don't think we've ever had a time where the end game wasn't the exact same.
We always agree on
We get
where
to
we're going.
places slightly differently, and that's where I would say earlier in our careers it was more, and not on purpose, but you're twins. It's more about, well, here's my opinion versus your opinion. And it's like, okay, let's remember that we are 50-50 business partners, and in order for us to be successful, we've got to team up to make sure that this is the right end game. And it just takes intentional focus. We've had to do ground rules. I mean, all the things that you have to do. I mean,
You want to tell them about your sign you made for me?
You'll have
be in
ground rules.
dialogue. Susan has a sign. Well, she did. She's gotten a lot better, but I had to give her a sign one day to put on her desk. It says "Be in dialogue" because she's so decisive, and I'm so decisive. But in order,
But she likes to talk it out more than I do.
yeah, in
Yeah,
order,
you're a trailblazer. You just go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
If we've talked about it once and then we talk about it again, I'm like, we've already talked about this.
and like for me, if I'm just going to make a decision, I don't really need to talk to you about it. So when I'm dialoguing, it's like, hey, let's dialogue and come up with the best decision together. There's something in my head that's not giving me 100% the right answer. And for Susan, she just wants to get the answer out, and then
Move on.
So she has a tendency to interrupt people.
That's true.
And and then you get nothing out of the conversation that person had saved up for. It's not just a twin thing; it's a human.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
all humans.
So anyway, so
I gave her a stanchion that says "Be in dialogue," and she was like, "What's this supposed to be?" I'm like, put it on your desk.
So then the entire team finally understood that I've been mentally abused by Jessica my whole life because she made a sign for me to put on my.
It's still in our
still
office.
in there,
This was like 2 or 3 years ago, so it's not even that old. But
Yeah.
I'd just say it. Like the twin thing, it is our superpower.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm 100% positive. Susan and I are an example of 1 + 1 = 3 at a minimum, and other times it's a lot more. If we are not teamed up, we can be more distracting and destructive.
And it's exhausting.
Yeah, it's exhausting.
Yeah.
So we've really had to.
Business is already really, really
it's
hard.
Yeah.
You're gonna like tango with your partner. You're like, man,
I don't have the
I
energy.
gotta fight these people, not these people.
Yeah.
But when we're teamed up, like there's no stopping us.
Yeah.
Like it's pretty nuts.
But I'm assuming that takes work and intentionality, it's probably like with in marriage.
It's
Oh, yeah.
Like
exact
when you're
same
in
thing.
a
exact
fight,
same.
it just kind of affects everything.
Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah.
To get, but it's also not easy because I think the thing that's hard about family, and things that's hard about siblings is you both know each other's like weaknesses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
mess, and your
Yeah.
mess
Yeah.
splashes on her.
Yeah.
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 But the ability to forgive or overlook
Yeah.
or treat with like it's really hard.
Yeah.
Because like we're all humans and humans are messy and
Yeah.
and so but I'm assuming you've had to cultivate, we're clashing, how do we bridge the gap and get back?
Yeah,
For sure, and personal work. I mean, I think So there's stuff that we do together, but then there's a lot of personal work that goes into controlling oneself. And so twins are like at least for us, and this is why we're such idea people, is because our entire life, I have an idea, and then it's, what about this idea? What about this idea? What about this idea? And we would iterate for 30 minutes on a topic and come up with like the most masterful idea, which is amazing.
And you realize that early on, like
Yeah.
Yeah. But if you're not doing that and you're just trying to get your point across, you never get to that level. You're basically stuck at like average person level decision making, which is.
We, for a while, and it's gotten better as we've gotten older, but for a while, I mean, we did basically couples therapy. We did partner therapy. It was like,
you did?
it was
Yeah, it was
maybe
like
once a month. It could have been more than that, where we would have to go and, because
and you did that out of like necessity to overcome issues. Okay.
Well, I wouldn't necessity.
and we're big, as you know about our mental health initiative. We're big, and I'm always been big on anything in that type of space. So like,
Being introspective.
I did therapy when I was like 21 years old or something. So like we told you about the psychologist that does all of our personality tests for the team. It's the same guy. He knows every single person on our team super well. And so when Jessica and I we had partner therapy, he knew every dynamic we were talking about because he did personality tests on all of them, and including us.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just, we're self-improvement people. I haven't used that word, but Susan and I, and this can be exhausting for people on our team or people in our lives, we always want to be the next best version of ourselves or do the next best version of something well. Like and that sounds almost like we're unhappy where we currently are, but that's not it. It's just we have that wanderlust with life and ourselves.
More.
Yeah.
More.
We want to be better.
We want to be better. We want to be better.
And
so
there's a humility that comes with that too.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
I haven't arrived. I want like
yeah.
Agree.
growth mindset.
And
Agree.
too, you can tell, I mean, I think gut intuition is like, you can tell when something feels kind of off. Like this isn't going perfectly. And like if you're going to go into business with your family or even with your wife or whatever, it kind of has to be way better than it would be with someone that's not in your family, because it's so important. You can't mess it up.
Yeah.
So just high stakes poker.
And two questions. One, like from therapy and working on it and doing it now for a long time. Are there any practices or I'd be curious about the rules or like things that you have done to make it beneficial? And my other question is, outside of work, you're with each other all the time.
Yeah.
Do y'all still hang out and get together, or is it like we need a little space and like?
Yeah. I'll go with the first one. The second one's interesting. The first one, I would say, so we have ground rules, and those are things like, we have, so when we do partners meetings, we have a partners agenda that gives us the ground rules for what we're going to talk about in those meetings. Outside of those topics, shouldn't even come up in that meeting because it means it's not to that level of discussion.
Partners meeting is just two of y'all?
Yeah.
Okay. So y'all, and is that weekly or monthly?
It's weekly.
If we're really like right now, we just had our big annual planning session. So we're
very aligned.
Super aligned.
Yeah.
So we probably won't have partners meetings again, probably till like mid-February.
Yeah.
But it's like Susan and I's space to talk about something that could be potentially conflictive or just, hey, let's team up. This is really important. Let's make it a priority for the team and the company, whatever.
Or like, because we both run, so it's also our time to be like, hey, did you notice what so and so did? Yeah, I got it on my radar, like that type of thing.
Yeah, just like an FYI or like major stakeholder.
But you have
headlines.
one of the rules is we don't talk about
random shit.
Yeah.
I mean,
because you can imagine in business, because we're family, all of a sudden we've been talking about a work thing, and then all of a sudden we're like, well, you pissed me off yesterday or whatever, and you're like,
it's like, no, this is our time to
talk about these topics.
But we've got ground rules. Can't interrupt the other person. Both people have to come prepared. They've got to submit items on the agenda. If you don't submit items on the agenda, you don't get to talk about it. This is not a bitch session unless you're prepared for the other person.
That's the other thing, because we're family. For a while, it would just turn into like, let's just complain about how hard shit is, and that's not productive.
Yeah. So that we both try and meditate twice a day. So trying to be, a lot of this, even though we are identical twins, we have to be better versions of ourselves to be the better version of ourselves as business partners. And,
and we charge each other. So it's actually, we have to be that much more, we almost have to rebel against what we naturally do together, which is like rise like a phoenix, like super hot. And like, so we're like, okay, we need to meditate. We need to do some yoga. like
we can feel it. If one of us has had a bad day or whatever, like sometimes we'll be like, we shouldn't. Because we'll just, the Phoenix is the best example.
Phoenix, I love that analogy.
Yeah, and then it's basically
big
like
fiery monster.
Around the office, we're basically like fire and gasoline, like in our wake, and people are like,
our CFO, who's like our grounded one's like,
he's like, I'm going to cancel my meeting with you guys later.
Yeah.
So I would say we have to be very intentional, and then we put practices in place, and then our tiebreaker rule is whoever cares more makes the decision.
Yeah.
And you sort of have an unspoken rule about
Yeah. And you can tell we both have hot buttons, and we know our hot buttons now. Like I'm branding, marketing, strategy, value add, those like I'm super passionate about. And so Susan tries not to dig in that chili. She'll have an opinion, but
she'll defer.
She'll defer. Susan has her own versions of those things too, and I'll defer. And we'll tell our team, hey, I'm happy to give you my counsel, but that's really a Susan. Susan's going to make it kind of
So on your org chart, roles and responsibilities, you have very clearly defined lines.
Yes.
We used to be very clearly defined. So it used to be, and our company was smaller, that we have almost 40 people now, so it's different. So when we started our company, and then it's gradually changed over time, when we started our company, I was kind of over marketing, branding, leasing, strategy. We shared development. Susan was over finance, shared development, accounting, and strategy. The major buckets.
Investments.
Investments. So those topics kind of led what people would come to us on, but any major decision we made together, just one of us would
Do we buy this thing? Do we sell this thing?
As the company's grown, really, she and I basically have turned into, and this is where we should be, and we're still working on this as leaders and getting these right seats, mentors and advisors to the overall organization on anything super complicated, because we tend to work on some stuff that's not simple. Business development, strategy. And that's really where we are spending the majority of our time.
Doing it kind of more together. Then you're doing finance, you're doing leasing.
Because we have people in those seats now.
Who are good at it.
They're good at it. And so our role is really to bring new investors in, new ideas, think strategically at stuff, think about the company. Do we have people in the right seats?
A lot of people stuff right now.
Tons of people stuff.
Yeah.
Being the company cheerleader, driving cadence when we need to, pulling off cadence when it's too much, that type of stuff. So,
which we don't do a good job at.
We do terrible at that, but we're working on it. So that's really where it's gone now. But people still generally know this is a hot button thing for Jessica. If I'm gonna go find someone, I'm gonna go find her.
Yeah.
It's a hot button thing for Susan. I should get her opinion on this. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. And then outside, do y'all
We hang out all the time.
You hang out all the time?
Yeah, I have to remind myself to hang out with other people.
Okay.
Because, we have kids that are very close in age. We want to hang out.
We live like about a minute apart.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the kids dynamic is fun.
Oh yeah. I mean, so my 3-year-old Ben said, "Mommy has 3 kids." I was like, "What? No, I've got." I said, "Who?" He said, "Me, Elliot, Vivi," because Vivi's always at my house. And I was like, "No, that Vivi is Aunt Jessica's," and he's like, "What?" Because we're just always together.
And then he goes, "So I have 2 mommies."
Yeah.
We're like,
and I was like,
"No."
"Who's your second mommy?" He's like, "Aunt Jessica," and I was like,
That's funny.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it.
Sweet boy.
We do though. If it's like super intense at work, and I don't know if you do it intentionally. I know I do it. We try and give ourselves some space because if it's super intense at work, it's impossible to not get on those topics.
Yeah.
So it's like you just got it. You got to say for both of us, we're just gonna see you in a couple of days.
Yeah.
But also you like talking about
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
both.
And as we've gotten older, as you get older, your self grows. The versions of yourself, it's not just one person. It's I want to have a family. I want to be a mom. I want to be a wife. I want to be a sister. I want to be a business partner. You get better about prioritizing which version of yourself you want to be at a different period in time, because you have more control.
Yeah, you're
focused.
Examining and focusing and making a conscious choice.
Yeah. Especially when you're able to make like healthy choices that allow you to be more awake and aware to being, okay, all right, I really want to be, family time right now. And if you're not taking really good care of yourself, it's a lot harder to like identify that stuff, which is another reason why we're big into all the functional medicine stuff. And
every year, like we see each other every like when I first got married to my, this is my second husband, Garrett. He's amazing. But he was like, "So this is what we do. So we just hang out with Susan like every night." I'm like, yeah. I mean, pretty much what we do. Pretty much what we do. He's like, I'm not quite sure this is going to work. And then you have to start being like, oh, okay, now I'm a duo, a different duo, and because we kind of forget because we've had kind of one life for a long period of time.
Yeah.
It's very, I would say somewhat new to us, at least it's about half of our lives now that we really have intentionally separated as 2 people.
Yeah.
Versus being like, what are we going to do on this?
I remember I went to a yoga retreat. It was like a week-long yoga retreat, and I went by myself. And
that's a long time.
It was badass.
For you, that was probably.
Oh my God! I came back.
We've been apart.
I came back so weird.
Yeah,
Jessica was like, "Susan, not everything. Like you're thinking a little weird right now.
Like come back down to earth, man.
Yeah,
we got some stuff to go. We got to do
I'm
some
doing
stuff.
Like yoga 3 times a day. Like, but I found myself wanting to tell people like I'm a twin.
Yeah,
because I was just by myself, and I'm like, well I have to be my
some
own
weird part of your personality.
Human. It was so interesting to like observe myself feeling the.
It's such a part of your identity.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Like so I was like, so who am I? If I'm not going to talk about me being a twin, how am I introducing myself? It was very interesting, this was 7 or 8 years ago. It wasn't that long ago.
Because what's crazy is like the only thing I can compare that to, if I'm looking at myself anecdotally, is like is marriage.
Yeah.
Like I don't have any type of relationship that's that.
Yeah.
Which is kind of cool to have that. You have.
Yeah.
It's unique.
It's this is morbid, but every once in a while I'll think about this is so not mean to be negative, but like when one of us passes away, like when we're old, like am I just going to die like a minute later?
Like on The Notebook.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I kind of hope I do. Like, it's just, I don't.
Yeah.
It's
what a cool connection.
It's a blessing.
I think there is a testimony to a testament to the work that you've put into that.
Yeah.
because it's not easy. Like,
yeah, it takes very intentional effort.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think
For
a
sure.
lot of it is probably due to the humility you both have. Like, we're going to work on ourselves.
Yeah.
We got to take care of ourselves because we can't be healthy for the organization.
Yeah.
We can't, if we're not.
Yeah. The hard part is because we do spin ourselves up. So there are times when we both go unhealthy. And then the whole organization feels it.
Oh,
Oh my God.
100%.
Poor people.
I was speaking at this startup grind event a couple days ago, and one of the things that the whole thing is like kind of sharing the journey and the ups and downs, blah blah blah. But I got asked several times like about mental health and about how you handle stressful things, and it's like the answer is you have to find rhythms.
Yeah.
That allow you to take care of yourself.
No doubt.
Because you can't handle the hard things if you're not. And I can stack the odds so much more in my favor if I'm having solitude, if I'm studying, if I'm working out, if I'm like eating right. Like, it's the only way you can handle it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And solitude's a big one.
Oh, it's such a.
There was there was like a period of a year where I was more focused on my physical and mental health than Jessica was, and because she has a 2-year-old, I have a 3-year-old. So we all know when you have really young babies, like you turn into like, well, I guess I'm just in the back seat. Like I don't. Anyways, and we were talking about it one day, and she was like, I just realized I'm just never by myself.
I couldn't remember a time she was like a year and a half old at that time, or maybe.
And that's a hard season.
Yeah, it is.
Your time is
Oh
so.
God.
Yeah,
so
you have
hard.
to. I mean, just part of it. But I was like, I can't remember the last time I've done anything alone.
But it's so good for you.
Yeah, it is.
Oh my God. Yeah.
It's like it made me a morning person.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Too. I get up at 5:30 just to.
It's the only time I can be all.
Yeah.
And now I like love it. Love it.
It's my favorite.
Yeah.
Bed at 9.
Yeah. Right, exactly. Yeah.
2 mornings ago, I accidentally slept through my alarm, so I didn't get up till 6, and I was like, it's gonna throw off my.
It does.
Freaking day, and you feel it
totally
all day long.
Yeah,
you know?
I had that today. I forgot to set my alarm last night.
Yeah,
and I woke up at 6, and I was like, I was really sad.
Yeah,
I know.
I was like, dang it, this is like my favorite
time.
My whole day's messed up now.
Yeah, it is. Well, cool. Thanks for sharing all that.
Yeah.
I have a couple questions. I'm trying to decide where I want to go with it. I think this is I was going to talk about business stuff, but let's talk into like mental health.
Great.
We're on that topic.
Yeah.
And y'all, do you have a foundation, a fundraiser? Is it just what is it?
So we have a 501c3.
Oh, so you have an actual
We have a
501c3.
nonprofit. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So we started the initiative 7 years ago. It was not a 501c3. It was just thoughts become things, and we're like, okay, we need to start raising for this because we and we can get into the personal story, but like we witnessed really shitty outcomes and resources, and realized like, oh, this is all that we have, and we're like in 2020 or whatever year it was, I can't remember, 2018. We're like, this, how is this even possible? This is what we're dealing with.
2015 to 2017.
I mean, our understanding of the human brain, which has gotten so much better in the last couple of years as COVID accelerated a lot of those conversations, is back then, which again was only 7 or 8 years ago, was frightening. I mean, it was awful. But anyways, so we started raising funds back then, and there was no 501c3. We basically were just, we found UT Southwestern and what they were doing, and a particular doctor, his name's Dr. Trivedi, who's amazing. We were with him yesterday, and still are obsessed with him. We're that man's hype man. But started just funneling dollars there. So if I went and talked with you and say, Jamie, I need $5,000, you're writing a check directly to UT Southwestern. You weren't writing it to us. And then
we did that because we didn't want people to feel uncomfortable, because we were, obviously we had a real estate company. We weren't a nonprofit, and we wanted people to get behind the cause, but we didn't want us to be a reason that they didn't want to get behind the cause. So we just said, for a while, let's just start building trust with the community.
Yeah.
If this is what's.
And so now we have a 501c3, and we have an executive director that oversees the initiative for us that M2G pays for, not the 501c3.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. And so, Jessica and I don't know how much money we're going to spend by the end of our life on the initiative, but I don't really care, but we'll probably, since it's going to be a legacy for us, we've raised $1.6 million.
1.6.
We'll probably, I mean, over our lifetime, hopefully raise like $30 million or something. I mean, like we are very, very focused. It's not about raising money, it's about the impact.
Yeah.
Obviously. But, and so we're just super passionate about it.
And using your platform and your network. And
it's been interesting. So the first couple of years, you know, is much more grassroots, like me asking, you know, our friends or business colleagues or whatever. And then now we have used our platform to increase donations by like, look, if you're going to be our attorney, you're gonna. I'm gonna need you. I'm gonna need you to contribute. It's not that
more
hard.
like, hey, look,
it's understood
for
really
us in business means that you care what happens to other people too.
Yeah,
you know, and we happen to have a way in which you can help also if you so feel. And Art of the Mind, which is our big fundraising event, has almost come to me when we have that event. Yes, it's a fundraising event and it's really focused on mental health and the impact that we're making in that space through the fundraising dollars we're putting towards mental health research. And it's about art and all those things, but it's also like a celebration of so many people that have come together to say, we care, you know, like we care about this cause. We needed someone to be a champion to say they care so we can say we care. And now we all care. And so it's a pretty cool thing to see 300 to 400 people in the same room, just like elated talking about mental health research.
Yeah. The first year we did an event, and we did the very first thing we did this like really intense video
short film.
Rambo. Do you know Rambo? Rambo?
Yeah.
So she produced it.
With Red Production. She was a director, and then Red Productions, Red Sanders produced
but what it did is it took the viewer through in a experiential way what it's like to have a mental disease. So there was, I mean, it was way intense and weird. But anyways, my point being, we had like the mayor in the room and all these, you know, people that obviously don't talk about mental health. This is the first year that we did it. And we just forced everybody to have a conversation. And it was so interesting. And again, this was pre-COVID. Forcing people that are like really successful business people to say, you know, I actually struggle with anxiety or whatever it was. And it was so interesting. Back today, that doesn't seem that weird. 7 or 8 years ago, that
was a bit more taboo.
Yeah, for sure. So it was really interesting. Yeah. And so it just, and I think people were willing to do it because they identified with our personal stories. So how the whole thing.
Yeah. Do you want to share that story?
Yeah, we'll get into it. Which it's really Jessica's story. It's more Jessica's story than it's my story, but again, we're one person, so it's our story.
We identify as one person.
Jessica's first husband was, I mean, just like he could have been hanging out here with all of us, totally normal. And then one day, his eyes looked different. And he suffered a severe mental break and then was diagnosed with extreme bipolar disorder. This was 7 years ago.
It was 2015.
And so he had all the support in the world.
9 years ago.
9 years ago. Yeah, that's crazy. No, oh yeah, that's right. 9 years ago. Because it was when Jessica was pregnant with their first child. And usually for white males, it comes on later in their 30s and triggered by a major life event.
Later in their 20s.
Later in 20s. And it's triggered by a major life event. And there's some other things happening. Anyways, so he had all the support in the world, and we went and talked to the best doctors in the world, best researchers, went to the best, clinics, like checked him in places, did ECT, ketamine, anything you could do, and he could not get better. And then ultimately he ended up passing away because he was hit by a car in the middle of a manic episode and died. And so we were exposed to literally, okay, this is someone who has a very severe diagnosis. What are the resources? Any resources possible.
Yeah. And again, we're told our entire lives, if you focus on something, you can.
Yeah, you're used to, we can solve it.
Yeah,
we
right.
can solve it, yeah.
And so we saw like, this is the best the world has. This is the best we have. And so we decided that we couldn't let that happen. And again, we're entrepreneurs by nature. And so we were just like, okay, let's turn our grief into motivation. And it's obviously, we're so passionate about it. And I'm not bashful about it. I don't feel bad asking people for money for it. Like, it is such a needed cause. And I think there's been so much accelerations in the topics over the last couple of years that I think I can't wait to see the impact that not only we're going to make, but really where the space is going. Like, we're ultimately after, there's a number of things that we do on advocacy and awareness, which is really talking about it. And the other is funding research. But we're really after, and the doctor that we support finding a biomarker if that something they can or markers take your blood and they can say, okay, you're predisposed to severe depression or bipolar disorder. Because the challenge is what happens today.
Have they found that?
No, but they're
making
a lot of strides. Because the challenge is you suffer severe depression. Once you've hit that point, we're treating stage 4 cancer with Advil. It's too late. So you want to try to avoid it.
Someone's treatment journey, like, hey, you have an indication you could be.
It's like high blood pressure. You need to take medicine.
Turn into something. So you need to start. You need to exercise 5 times a week. You've got to eat really healthy. You need to make sure you get 8 hours of sleep a night. You need to have a tie to. We're talking about the book, The Awakened Brain, but it's basically about your tie to the higher power or a spiritual journey being resistance to depression. You need to have, in some cases, it will be medication and therapy, but you have to. Those things could help so many people.
So
if they never
don't
got
get to the extreme
stage 4 level.
Yeah.
So, and the other thing is, it would help. It helps reduce the stigma for people. It's so different, and I use this example. People see, the homeless man under the bridge talking to himself. Everybody runs the other way. If you see a little kid in Walmart talking to themselves by themselves, everyone's going to rush to that kid to help them. And it's because they assume that they're innocent, but they're intimidated or scared of the person that it's gone to that level. And so if we can figure out how to get to it sooner, that there is a potential predisposition, then, I think we will save and help a lot of people and their families not live that type of life.
Because that is such a crazy thing. Like in philosophy, you have what's called the mind-body problem, because you have this physical thing.
It's crazy.
That somehow affects and makes this non-physical thing.
Yes.
And how do you bridge that gap? But we know physically there's so much involved with that.
Yeah.
But then there's a spiritual component.
It's very complicated.
And then it's just such a wild.
Yeah.
So Dr. Trivedi, that's I would say one of the main things that, help really guided us to him, is just, he looks at the holistic person and studies it from all angles. Like, it's not going to be one solve for everyone.
No, there's definitely, there's not one solve.
Yeah. It's multiple different types of things, but it's interesting.
How did you handle all of that? Because you have a baby now.
Yeah.
I'm assuming y'all are doing some sort of crazy deal or something deal, and there's stress there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we,
Did you take a break from
not really. I mean, well,
we took a break when he passed away.
Yeah, we took about a month and a half off. It was during the holiday season. It was just like,
we were
painful.
So I was Elliot. He died and Elliot was born 5 days later. So I was pregnant. So I already was on. Jessica's already taking the laboring or at work, and then she called me and said he passed.
You're on maternity.
I'm on maternity leave. He passes away. So and we're at the time the business was like 2 or 3 people outside of Jessica and I. It was close to the holidays. It was October, and our biggest client was the stockyards, and she's talking and we're like, well, maybe we can figure this out. And I said, we got to go pencils down. And so we called our friend at the stockyards, Craig Cavalier, and said, like, we're going to have to take a break. And he said, okay. And we just picked back up in the new year. So we did have to go pencils down.
But it was like 45 days. But but really, pre that, we, work, I would say, again, it goes back to our upbringing. Business and work is like Susan and I's love language. So it was almost like an escape for me during this whole time period.
Compartmentalize a little bit.
Yeah. Like, exactly. I definitely had to compartmentalize because it was, this at home and then, this here.
And this chaos at home. It wasn't like, it wasn't even like heavy. It was chaos.
Yeah, just chaos.
That's probably even an understatement.
Exactly.
Yeah, it was very bad. But we ended up separating, when Vivian was around 6 months old. And then after that, he went probably even more downhill because there was no one there to, really, hate to say it, but hold him accountable.
Yeah, save him from himself. And so we got divorced and he went downhill pretty quickly and then stopped taking all his medicine and all that type of stuff. But
that period of my life was it's hazy now because like I lived an entire lifetime in like being married to this person for 2 years and seeing him basically die alive and then live as a totally different human, completely separate from me, and then passing away.
And it really was literally one day his eyes were different. It was just overnight. And we were here like 2 weeks. Me and Jessica, my mom, were all like, did you notice Clint's eyes look a little different? And he started like acting a little weird. But it literally was like me and you having a conversation, one day normal, next day, you're gone.
It's crazy.
I mean,
Wild.
yes.
Yeah.
So wild.
Yeah. And
Scary.
Yeah. It's very, and for a while you're like, wait, this is possible?
Yeah,
I mean, like
right.
we're all walking around with something up here that can do that?
Yeah, right.
You know? I mean, it was a very eye-opening experience, and one, I'll obviously never forget, but it's a hazy time, but
Trauma, block out trauma.
But work was, the easier part. To dig in there. And then of course I had this beautiful baby who is like amazing. And our parents they're up here. They live in between me and Susan. Like we have the best family. They're super supportive. I have amazing friends. Yeah. I have Susan. Around towards the end of that whole process, I'd started dating my current husband, Garrett, who is an amazing human. And just, he stepped in fully as like we got this role. And he's continued to be a really great supporter of our mental health initiative and making sure Clint's memory is still, the why is still there. Yeah. So it's pretty amazing.
Yeah. Well, I love that you have stepped into it, because you could like hide that.
Yeah.
Push it down.
For sure.
But y'all have stepped into it and said, we're going to, 1, bring awareness, 2, talk about it, 3, invite people in.
Yeah.
And then 4, like, let's fight it.
Yeah.
And so I think that shows a lot of resilience.
Yeah.
It's really cool. It's been fun to see how y'all have done
Thank
that
you.
and the passion for it now, and just the difference you're making in it.
Oh, it's the best work. You can imagine. I mean, because we've had some tough times in business, especially in the last couple of years when rates started going up, and we're like, "Where's all my money going?" But you can imagine you've got a shitty day at work, and all of a sudden somebody sends me in a $10,000 check for mental health. I'm like, I'm good.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Like that's the real work.
Yeah. And we're doing lots of cool stuff right now on it. We're going to do some cool stuff this year, so I'm excited.
Yeah.
And like our first goal was $1 million. Now we're at $1.6 million. Now we're about to go real big goal.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
I don't know, like maybe 10. We're not sure yet.
yeah, we're not sure exactly what it's going to be, but
We're about to really alienate some
be
people.
all about vision and really setting that up for.
This is coming after y'all's
legacy.
2025
Yeah.
vision
Yeah.
casting.
Exactly.
Well, thanks for sharing all that.
Yeah.
And thanks for opening up about that. I'd love to pivot now and talk about. So there's 2 things I wanted to cover. One, I want to talk about just scaling.
Yeah.
But I also want to talk about like the financial component.
Yeah.
Just selfishly.
Yeah.
Let's do scaling first.
Let's do scaling. Like,
Yeah.
because you went from like, we kind of have this company, it's us, and we got an intern.
Yeah.
Now we
Just
got
like fell off the face of the earth.
40 people.
Yeah.
And you also pivoted from like being so hands-on and doing these like colorful projects, I'll call them, to now doing
A bunch of industrial
Scale.
and bigger projects. Yeah.
big old city, bigger than city blocks, millions of square feet.
There's a lot there. I'd say big picture, back on our personalities, Jessica and I have always been, we're not the smartest, but we are outworkers. That's just how we've always been. And so for the first couple of
comes from our dad.
Yeah.
He told us early on in life.
outwork
like,
'em.
You may not be the smartest person in the room. You can for sure be the hardest worker.
Yeah. So pre-kids, you're able to do that. Then all of a sudden we started having kids, and I'm like, oh, I can't wake up at 4:00 in the morning and do like 8 hours of analysis.
Your
And
time
right.
is shrunk.
Your time is very shrunk. And then we were realizing, hey, we're not able to hit the goals that, because we're always big goal people. We weren't able to hit them because there's only 2 of us. So then in 2018,
We had probably 10 people on the team at this time.
Yeah. In 2018, Vivian and Elliot were both here. And we realized that we needed smarter people to do, what they were really good at. Instead of us just being jacks of all trade and everything. 1, because of sheer exhaustion. And then number 2, we could tell we were not going to hit any of our goals. So we started hiring meaningfully starting in 2018. for the longest time, we would hire, we would go get business, and then we'd hire people after we got the business, so we could always cover the overhead of the humans based upon the fee revenue we were bringing in. And so that led to us not scaling as fast. And then in 20...
And when you say that, meaning you're now having properties you're holding that are income producing.
And so that we
you're
could...
not at the mercy if I got to sell this.
Exactly.
And I have
so
this
then we could
giant payroll that I have.
Exactly. We could afford it. And then in 2021, we got more brave and realized we wanted to be excellent. And in order to be excellent...
Well, we wanted our platform to be excellent.
Yeah.
What does that mean, platform?
So our company, the platform that we're building it's bigger than Susan and I. It's, in our mind, if there's like a vision up there, it's a team of ninjas that come out at the same time. And that platform needs to be sharp, tight, and able to get you to the next level.
And
in
it's
whatever
expensive.
Project that is. And it's expensive.
Super expensive.
But it's important. Like we strive for excellence in everything that we do.
Yeah.
So
our biggest challenge is not burning people out, candidly. But so anyways, so then decided we were going to start investing. And so started scaling the business, switched. We still, what we're the best in the world at, quote unquote, I still think is mixed use. But mixed use, the way we do it and the scale of the projects that we do, that's not really a scalable business. That's like, okay, this is my passion. This is what I'm really good at.
Because for the project to be successful, that's what it needs. It's got to have a caretaker, basically.
Yeah, right. So we said, okay, we're going to do mixed use opportunistically, and we're not going to do a bunch of them. So we have 3 projects right now on the mixed use side that are of, we call them once in a lifetime projects, and we're not asking for more projects.
And meaningful scale.
Yeah, and then...
And are these properties you're buying, or these properties you're doing for somebody else?
Both.
Okay.
Both.
Depends on how the opportunity comes.
Stockyards would be one you're doing for somebody else.
Exactly.
Yeah, we have another one that'll get announced soon, so I can't say it, but we're doing it for someone else. And then we have another one that we've been selected, and it'll be, we'll bring in capital just like we do on anything else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then, so then we said, okay, what's going to be our like rinse and repeat, which we can't help ourselves. Nothing is rinse and repeat, but if we had one, it'd be industrial. And we, in 2018, the same time we decided we were going to start investing in people, said, we're entrepreneurs. We're going to do real estate the rest of our lives. What other asset classes do we want to make sure that we're invested in? And so we're like, industrial is going to be, it's the wave of the future. We're going into the Jetsons there or whatever. So we added industrial back then. And then, so that's how we started really scaling the business.
And now industrial is the bulk.
It's not the bulk of the dollars. It's the bulk of the square footage.
Okay. Yeah. It's probably 70% of our business.
Yeah.
Okay. But you had never done industrial before that.
No, outside of...
How did you learn? How did you know how to
We did a little, so we've always dabbled in it, buy a warehouse, sell it. It just wasn't...
Don't forget, we
institutionalized.
Literally every asset class we invested in as children. So like...
Our parents did it.
We did self-storage to land, to subdivisions, to retail, to office.
And pre having M2G and even the early stages of M2G, I was Tesla's representative for Texas for what they called their showroom dealership model.
Okay.
And so we started looking at a lot of industrial properties from that, because that's primarily where those spaces were. And so that it was just serendipitous that this all was happening at one time. But once we did a white paper on industrial, and then we said, all right, let's go. And then we go do it, So we started meaningfully investing in that in 2018 as like a dedicated strategy versus different than a one-off,
Yeah.
Like we're going to deploy a lot of capital in this.
Jessica, I think, has more energy than I do for whatever reason. I was really motivated to get into that space because of the tailwinds behind it. She's not afraid of like things being hard and like fighting through it.
It's not annoying.
I'm not either. However, there was something in my head that was pushing me. Like we've got to get to something that there's capital demand behind it, and that we can not kill ourselves.
Well, and two, I would say, we both identified with we need something that also works for us when you're not there. Because we wanted to have meaningful relationships with our family and children and our own personal lives. And so, you know, that's there's only a couple things that can do that, you know, and industrial is one of them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So that's really why we scaled the business. It is, I'd say what we've been through, really, 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 really hard, several times. I feel like, knock on wood, I feel like at least so far for 2025, it feels a little easier. Because for a while we were
like chewing glass.
Yeah, exactly. We were, that's what Elon Musk says. He said that's starting a business is like telling yourself about to chew glass.
Yeah.
You know, for a while it was just us, and then we were like too small. It was so hard. And then we were like too small to be big, and then we were
too big to
be small, and now we're like, okay, I think it just feels a little bit easier. It's
the team's in place.
Yeah, I mean we've got
the market's doing the right thing.
Yeah,
trying to
hopefully. So it feels better. I can see today. I can see the reason why we scaled. There is 80 checkpoints along the way that you're like, should I go backwards? I mean, as we all know.
Yeah.
And those times are really hard, for sure.
Well, I would say scaling was less to me about how to service the business we were going after. It was more about the vision that we have for ourselves and the company, and the goals requires scale to get there. And so we scaled. And I think there's probably still more of that will need to be done in order to accomplish those.
Yeah. The challenge is now you went from we're running and gunning and making decisions and we can move quickly and know how to do it.
Exactly.
And now I'm a people manager.
And the boat doesn't go like this anymore. The boat goes like this.
That would be fast. It's more like
yeah, which it kills me for the record. Sure. I get a lot of feedback from the team, and I, constantly need to improve, but the pace at which I set things, is anxiety producing for the rest of the team for sure.
I would just say, I think we've moved, there are things that brought us to where we were, which at that time we said we're successful enough that we should scale. Those type of behaviors will not get us from that point to the next version.
Yeah.
Things like really strong leadership will, strategic mindset, trying to stay out of the weeds, mentoring, finding the right people along the way, and partners. Those are going to be the things that are going to get us to accomplish the vision that we have set out for the company. And those behaviors that Susan and I had, call it for the first 4 to 5 years of our company, yes, they got us there. And there's nuggets of those things that we need to impart on the team. But doing it that way because it was the way we did it, doesn't mean that that's how they should do what they're doing. Otherwise, then, we might as well be doing it for ourselves.
Yeah.
Oh,
so, and that change in mindset, especially for a hard charging entrepreneur with those scores you looked at, that's what I manifest every morning, is to show up as a great leader that's patient, kind, and listens to the things that people are saying, takes those into account, and we all make the best decision. I manifest that every morning.
I love that. It's a choice.
It's a choice. It is for me because
it's not the default.
It's definitely not.
So you got to choose it.
You have to choose it, because my default is I'm just going to go in here and just
bulldoze.
I'm getting my gas can and my lighter, and we're just going to go guns a-blazing,
Yeah.
So, but I mean, I hope, in 5 years I'll look up and go, I said that over and over and over again, and now it's closer to my default.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
that's all you can do.
Well, we just have a few more minutes.
Okay.
So I was going to talk about financing.
Went so fast.
I think I'm going to pivot. Well, we went deep. We covered some.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we can talk about financing to any other time you want to do.
Okay. I may pick y'all's
for sure.
About that. I would love to in terms of scaling and one of it is like your own mindset and
that's
power.
90% of it.
But I was like, any other like tips or tricks or things you've learned or lessons or principles?
I would say that Susan touched on it, but just say it bluntly, if you have big goals and dreams that I'm gonna call that they're out there. It's a big number. It's a big amount of something. It is, and it's very clear in your mind. That's your definition of success. For us, our definition of success was we went and basically said, if our portfolio looked like this and we had done these things, what's that dollar amount? So we did it in the reverse, because we think of, our mission statement is to inspire evolution through impact and innovation. So when we think about impact, we think about the places that we have along the way. And then you assign a dollar amount to those things based off the vision that's there. And then so I would say getting to your vision, if you can assign a picture to it, then go into the numbers behind it, it's going to feel a lot more real and a lot more like you can own it. Yeah. I'd say that. The second one I would say is hire people smart. If you can do what I just described, then you want to hire the smartest people first and get them on your team. Don't try and do the reverse if you can. I mean, we obviously were doing it because financial strengths also. We could have done an SBA loan or something like that. That wasn't even on our radar in terms of a topic.
Yeah, right.
But if you can get really clear on where you're going, then you should put the right people in the right seat
early,
sooner.
Yeah,
because you're going to get there.
Don't start with the low level it's just what we did.
Yeah,
and then we were like, oh my God, these people all need direction. I need people that to give them direction.
Yeah. So I would say those two things, and then this is one that sounds completely opposite to my personality. But when you're scaling, be slow to make major changes. So once you start down a path, you're going to get a lot of shiny pennies on the way because you're scaling.
Yeah.
And you know what I'm talking about. I think you know. You're going to get calls from so-and-so. This sounds kind of exciting over here.
Yeah.
And calls from so-and-so. This sounds kind of exciting. We could go this way. We could go this way. And it's fine to make a pivot, but be very intentional if you make that pivot, because once you're scaling, then your scale goes very quickly in that direction too. So it's easier to, your misstep will take you down a different path.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of wisdom in that.
Yeah, for sure.
Because normally mine is like, ooh, shiny penny, let's go do that.
Yeah, that sounds fun.
Yeah, now I'm like, oh, that sounds like something we thought about for like 6 months and then decided not to do that. So let's remember we talked about that for like 6 months.
Yeah.
I know it's coming back up again,
Yeah.
So I would say those three things are something that sticks with me anyway.
No, I think those are good. Yeah. Mine was going to be the only other thing I was going to say, which sounds counterintuitive to what you were saying on your last bullet, but mine is, I think people, when you're scaling, you're like, oh, should I do this? Should I? And mine, just do it.
Yeah. Don't be afraid. I think so
afraid.
too. Like once you,
it's what's the worst thing that happens? You pivot. But go. Like if you're,
once you make that decision, go. Yeah.
Indecision is a decision.
Indecision is a decision.
Yeah. And if you're there, I mean, I would say being an entrepreneur, it's not the same as like, being a professional scuba diver or skydiver, but I mean, that's kind of the risk.
Yeah, I tell the team
that you sign up for. If you're going to go to those great lengths, you're kind of swimming with the great sharks or great white sharks, and you're jumping out kind of with, one parachute, but maybe your safety parachute's not really.
Every time I go to the dentist, I'm like, I should have been a dental hygienist. Their hours are right. They make pretty good money. They're not stressed out. They know every day what they're doing. I mean, who knew entrepreneur is basically like brain surgeon, but way harder. Like, it's so hard.
No roadmap. No schooling.
Yeah.
Were there any books, resources, podcasts, like lessons that were really instrumental along the way?
I would love to say that there were I would say what helped us from year 1 to year 6 was, and there's no other way to put it, grinding it out. Grinding it out, having crucial conversations.
I got 2 tips.
We're huge goal planners, so we've perfected kind of a goal session that we do every year. We've perfected over 10 years. But I would say recently 2 books come to mind that has really nothing to do with business. But I think for an entrepreneur, I think they're helpful. One is called The Power of Now. Have you read that? Oh man, you got to read it.
Really?
Yeah.
Like don't buy it. So we'll send it to you as a gift from this. And I'm going to send you a second one.
What's the one that I love?
And the second one is the Awakened Brain. And that's another really good one.
What's the one that
you like? Journey
to the Heart.
No.
Something Soul.
Yeah.
Oh God, it's so good.
That's another good one. But
but those are more touchy-feely books. But
yeah.
My 2 tips are not tips; they are people.
Oh, good.
And I would say, and this again, they're more touchy-feely, but I think the way you can scale your business or succeed in whatever you're doing is by being a better human. And so one is Dr. Julie Kennedy, who's Jessica and mine's functional medicine doctor. She is amazing. She changed my life completely, literally. And then
Is she here in Fort Worth?
yes,
Okay.
she's
great.
amazing. And then second is a lady named Faith Geiger. Do you know Faith?
I know Faith. Yeah.
Faith, I was pregnant with Elliot and I was on maternity leave, and I came back from maternity leave and Faith's hanging out with Jessica, and Jessica's like, I don't know what this lady's gonna do, but I know we want to hang out with her. And
So we wanna hire her.
her. And so Faith has been Jessica and mine's
She's a great sounding board.
sounding board,
Advisor.
somewhat of a life coach, very good friend for 7 years, and guided us through a lot of change, and is a constant reminder about how important it is to continue working on yourself.
Yeah.
And so those 2 people, and both of those people you too can have, are
I love that.
they're awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say, and if you can't have them for some reason and they're booked, what the one thing I do want people to hear from that is have advisors, have mentors, have people in your life, paid or not paid, that you're constantly, that know to check in on you and you can run ideas by.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's very important.
Yeah, I think it's like, even I went through a season about a year or so ago, like just reading through Proverbs a lot.
Yeah.
And so much, I was really blown away and kind of like convicted, because so much of Proverbs is the wise man seeks counsel. The wise man has counsel. The wise man wants counsel. And I, superpower is, I think I can do it on my own.
Yeah, right.
But it's also your Achilles heel.
Yes.
And I have learned the value as I've gotten older of like, have people
Yeah.
that call you out and challenge you and push you.
And it's also more dangerous. You go by yourself somewhere, whatever it is, in a goal, whatever, you eliminate some life jackets.
Yeah, isolation is not
Yeah, it's not good.
It's not a thing. So yeah, and what's interesting, like so much of the conversation we've had today has consistently gone back to your personal
Yeah.
self-health,
Yeah.
be it mentally, physically, emotionally,
Yep.
et cetera. So very fascinating. Love it. Last question. If you could go back and give yourself advice, your younger self advice, what would it be?
Oh man.
And this one's come up for me a lot because I'm thinking about my 10-year self. I'm doing this guided meditation that's a visualization of 10 years from now.
Yeah.
And you ask your 10-year self in this visualization what you should know. And I think it's relevant to what my 10-year-old self before would have said. But be patient and focus.
What do you mean by that?
So be patient. I mean, Susan and I, we were wearing suits when we were 21 years old, ready to go work like 60 hours a week and just drive straight to success. It's okay that life is a marathon. It is not a sprint. Yeah. And you don't realize that, especially when you have our personality type. You feel like you have to sprint everywhere, and there's times for that. But if you can just be patient, as long as you keep your eye on the end game, you don't have to run everywhere. Yeah. And so
that's a great visual.
That's literally, I would say my 20s, that's what I feel like.
Oh,
like
God.
running in place. And then focus, I truly believe everyone has all the tools they have up here. If you can just minimize the noise, and that could be multiple things. That could be you've surrounded yourself with people that are not maybe good for you. That could be you need to put yourself in a place on, higher education to get you to the next level. That could be you really need to study XYZ market in order to get where you're going. That could be anything.
Yeah.
Could be personal health, whatever. But just focus. Try not to have, which that's also a brilliant thing for entrepreneurs, is the shiny penny, because that's how you find opportunities. But the more that you can edit and focus, the more you're going to feel grounded in what is somebody who always is running in place to the next kind of version.
Great stuff.
Mine, so up until, I don't know, 5 years ago, I was the person that any of my mentors or advisors would, tell me what they worried about me is that I didn't enjoy.
Mm-hmm. On to the next.
And they're like, Susan, you'll kill yourself that way. And I remember in my head when they would say that to me, like, it's not that I wasn't having fun or whatever, but like, it wasn't even my capacity to understand what they were saying. I'm like,
It was a foreign category.
Yeah, I'm like, what do you mean? And so for me, and how I got to that was by starting to take care of myself and prioritize myself. Because I lived like probably, 10, 12 years working my ass off, but basically asleep. Mm-hmm. And, if I could go back and do anything different, it would be, how can I get to a place where I can be awake and aware in the beginning? And I can't imagine the different decisions I would have made along the way to now, how much more I would have done if I just would have been awake and aware a long time ago. So mine is, I think it would be around like, you've got to take care of yourself early. Because I definitely had, I had the threat to me was very real around never being satisfied. And I remember thinking like, I don't even know how to get there. Like, what are y'all talking about? So that'd be mine.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Very good. Guys, lots of wisdom.
Good stuff.
Nuggets and bombs today.
Good stuff.
Thanks for sharing your stories and for being so vulnerable.
Yeah.
Of course. Yeah.
Inspiring.
We love it.
Pumps me up.
Thank
Love
you
what
for
y'all
leading
doing.
us.
Yeah. Thank you.
Guys, thanks for being
great.
in here.
Thank you.
Congratulations, you made it to the end. Appreciate you listening. If you enjoy what you heard, if you enjoy these episodes, please subscribe and like and share wherever you listen to podcasts. When you do that, it goes a long way and helps us continue to produce great new content. This episode is brought to you by 6Av Storytelling, where we help businesses grow their brands through the power of storytelling. If you're an entrepreneur who is interested in learning more about that, please visit 6avstorytelling.com today.